My boyfriend said we were just FWB, so I introduced him to my new boyfriend. I found out I was single while making pancakes for a man who had a drawer in my apartment. Honestly, if that isn't a cosmic joke, I don't know what is. So let me back up, because apparently I need to explain how a woman can spend 12 months in what looks exactly like a relationship and somehow discover she's been enrolled in the world's most emotionally expensive friends with benefits program. It started normally enough. We met, liked each other, started seeing each other, and then somehow he became part of my life so gradually that I didn't even notice when it happened. At first, we'd meet for drinks or dinner. Then he started staying over. Then he was staying over every weekend. Then he had a toothbrush at my place. Then he had clothes at my place. Then he knew which grocery store had the good strawberries. Then I was buying his favorite cereal without thinking about it. That's not casual dating. That's domestic espionage. At some point, my apartment had basically become our unofficial headquarters. We weren't posting each other all over social media or making some dramatic announcement, but I never thought we needed to. We knew what we were. At least I thought we did. He told me he loved me. I told him I loved him. He'd hold me while we fell asleep. He'd kiss my forehead when he thought I was already asleep. He'd send me stupid memes during the week because he knew I'd laugh. We had started talking about taking a trip together. Not theoretically either. We were actually looking at places. So yes, I thought I had a boyfriend. Apparently I was delusional. The morning everything exploded. He was lying in my bed, looking entirely too comfortable. It was the weekend before his birthday, and I wanted to surprise him. I got up early, made pancakes, cut some fruit, made coffee, and brought everything into the bedroom. I was ridiculously pleased with myself, like embarrassingly pleased. I was standing there thinking, look at me, domestic goddess. Somebody hand me a tiny apron and a mortgage. He loved it. He was smiling, joking that I was spoiling him. And I was smiling back because I genuinely loved doing things for him. Then I casually called him my man, and he corrected me, just like that. No hesitation, no awkward pause, no embarrassed laugh. He said essentially that he wasn't my man. I laughed because I thought he was messing with me. He wasn't. He repeated it more seriously. He wasn't my boyfriend. My stomach dropped so hard I swear it landed somewhere near my ankles. I asked what we were, because apparently I enjoy emotional self-harm. His answer was that we were friends with benefits. Great friends with benefits. Like he was giving me a 5-star review on some app. I just sat there. I remember looking at the pancakes, that stupid stack of pancakes. I had made them with blueberries because he liked blueberries. Suddenly they looked insane, like evidence from a crime scene. And I was sitting there thinking, did this man just downgrade 12 months of his life while eating my pancakes? He kept eating. That was the part that absolutely destroyed me. He just kept eating. Meanwhile, I was having an internal medical emergency. I felt sick, literally sick, but I tried to act normal because my pride was still clinging to life by one tiny fingernail. So I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of him. I didn't throw the plate. I didn't ask him what kind of idiot thinks spending every weekend with the same woman for a year somehow qualifies as casual. I just went quiet. Eventually, he asked what we were doing that day. I told him I had cleaning and paperwork to deal with. He left about an hour later. The second the door closed, I ran to the bathroom and got sick. Then I cried. Not cute crying either. Not one elegant tear sliding down my cheek while I stare thoughtfully out a window. No, I cried like my nervous system had filed for bankruptcy. For hours. I couldn't keep food down for the rest of the day. That evening, he texted me thanking me for breakfast and telling me how amazing I was. Amazing. I stared at that word for probably 5 minutes. Amazing for what? Making pancakes? Being available? Providing girlfriend-level affection while being officially classified as nothing? I didn't answer. He called. I ignored it. He called again. Ignored. Again. Ignored. Around 10 that night, he actually showed up at my door. I opened it looking like death because, frankly, that part wasn't even an act. I pretended I had the flu. He offered to stay overnight in case I needed help. I said no. I wanted him gone. I wanted to crawl under my blankets and disappear from the planet. For the next few days, I barely responded to him. He never brought up the conversation. That blew my mind. Not once. He acted like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just looked me in the face and told me I was essentially a hookup with better breakfast service. His birthday came. I didn't wish him happy birthday. That felt petty. I know. But I was past caring. He had spent a year treating me like his girlfriend while refusing to call me one. And now I was apparently supposed to send a cheerful birthday message because what? Good manners? No, my manners were on vacation. Then he told me he missed me. He said he'd never gone this long without talking to me since we'd met. He wanted dinner. I said I was busy. He wanted to know if I missed him. And then I don't know what came over me. Maybe anger, maybe humiliation, maybe the tiny evil goblin living inside my chest finally woke up. I told him I was exhausted because I'd spent the night with another guy. I had not, obviously. But the second I hit send, my heart started pounding. My hands were shaking. Not because I felt guilty, because for the first time since that horrible breakfast, I felt like I had taken back a tiny piece of control. I put my phone down. 5 minutes later, he had seen it. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, appeared again, disappeared. I swear watching those 3 little dots was more entertaining than television. I took a shower. I made tea. I wandered around my apartment pretending I wasn't dying to know what he was going to say. Eventually, he sent something short and angry. I ignored it. A couple hours later, another message came through, basically telling me I could do whatever I wanted but shouldn't complain later. I actually laughed, because suddenly I understood. He wasn't heartbroken because he had lost his girlfriend. He was furious because his convenient little situation had stopped being convenient, and that distinction matters. It matters a lot, because he'd never claimed me, but apparently he still thought he owned access to me. That was the moment something inside me clicked. Oh! So that's how this works. You don't want the responsibility of having me, but you don't want anybody else to have me either. Interesting. Very classy. Very mature. A few hours later, around 10:30, the doorbell rang. Of course it was him. Who else would show up at that hour? I stayed quiet. The bell rang again. Then came a knock. I looked through the window and saw him standing there with his arms crossed, wearing that smug little expression he always had when he thought he was the smartest person in the room. He texted me to open the door. I didn't. He wanted to talk. I told him through text that he had said he wasn't my boyfriend, so I was simply enjoying my freedom. His response was basically that I had never wanted freedom, and that this little performance of mine wouldn't last. I laughed again. A dry laugh. The kind you make when something is so absurd that your brain doesn't know whether to cry or file a complaint. Then he started getting jealous. He wanted to know who the other guy was, whether he was good, whether he was better, and there it was, the giant flashing neon sign. Jealousy. He had spent a year acting like labels were beneath him, but the second he imagined another man sleeping beside me, suddenly labels weren't looking so bad. Funny how that works. I finally opened the window and told him it wasn't his business. He reminded me that I'd never acted like this before, and I reminded him that he had spent a year teaching me exactly how little claim he had on me. That shut him up for a second. He tried to convince me I'd get tired, that I'd miss him, that nobody would know me like he did. And honestly, that almost worked. Not because I believed him, because that sentence hit the part of me that had loved him. Of course I knew him. I knew his laugh, his habits, his favorite food, the way he slept, the things that annoyed him, the stupid faces he made when he was concentrating. I knew all of it. And that was exactly why I knew I had to leave. Knowing someone deeply doesn't mean they're good for you. Sometimes it just means you have a front row seat to their worst behavior. He eventually left. I watched his car disappear. Then I went back inside and cried again. Because revenge is cute in theory. In reality, heartbreak is exhausting. The next morning, I woke up with a headache and this awful pressure in my chest. I started deleting old messages. Hundreds of them. Memes. Pictures. Little jokes. Random good morning texts. Plans. Promises. Things that had felt romantic when I believed they meant the same thing to both of us. Now they looked different. That was the cruelest part. Nothing had changed about the messages. I had changed. And suddenly every sweet thing had an ugly second meaning. Then I met my best friend Vanessa for coffee. She took one look at me and knew something was wrong. I told her everything. The pancakes, the boyfriend conversation, the friends with benefits nonsense, the fake illness, the lie about another guy. All of it. She listened quietly. Then she told me something I wish I had never heard. Months earlier at a bar, he had approached her while I was in the bathroom. He had flirted with her. Then he had made some disgusting suggestion about the three of us hooking up. He'd laughed it off afterward and claimed it was a joke, except Vanessa hadn't thought it was fun. And apparently that wasn't the only time he'd behaved like that. She told me he'd flirted with other women. He'd gone out with at least 2 girls from our wider social circle. And when asked about me, he had apparently told them he wasn't committed to anyone. My whole body went cold. There it was. The missing piece. He wasn't confused. He wasn't scared of labels. He wasn't waiting for the right moment. He wanted the benefits of a relationship without being responsible for one. He wanted me loyal while he stayed available. And somehow I had been standing there making blueberry pancakes like a damn idiot. I didn't even feel jealous anymore. I felt embarrassed, then angry, then disgusted, then weirdly calm. Because once you know the truth, there's nothing left to romanticize. He hadn't lost a relationship. He had lost access to a woman who finally understood the arrangement he'd been hiding behind. And I wasn't going to chase him. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to demand closure from someone who had already given me all the closure I needed. Then I thought about Lucas. I'd known him through our mutual circle. He was quieter than my almost boyfriend. Less flashy. Less interested in proving himself. The first time we'd really talked, he'd basically warned me that I seemed too good for the guy I was seeing. At the time, I thought he was being judgmental. Turns out he was being observant. So I reached out, not as revenge. At least that's what I told myself. Okay, fine. Maybe there was approximately 3% revenge involved. I'm human. I wanted to know what it felt like to be around somebody who didn't make me question my place every 5 minutes. Lucas met me for coffee. He listened, really listened. No minimizing. No excuses for my ex. No telling me I was overreacting. He already knew the guy's reputation. And hearing someone else confirm what I had been slowly discovering was strangely comforting. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel crazy. I felt seen. We started spending time together, slowly. Nothing dramatic. Coffee, dinner, walks, long conversations. And that was when I realized something that honestly made me angrier than anything else. Peace felt weird. I wasn't used to it. I kept waiting for the catch, for the mixed signal, for the sudden withdrawal, for the little emotional punishment. It never came. Lucas was just consistent, which apparently is a revolutionary concept when you've spent a year dating a man whose emotional philosophy was basically, I want you, but I don't want the paperwork. Then the other guy found out. Of course he did. Men like that have a sixth sense for losing control. Suddenly my phone started blowing up. He wanted to know if I was really seeing Lucas. He was angry, then offended, then jealous. Then somehow he managed to make himself the victim. I didn't respond. A few days later, he showed up at my apartment. He looked exhausted, red eyes, wrinkled clothes, angry expression. But underneath all of that was the same arrogance. The same assumption that if he showed up, I would soften. I didn't. He wanted to know whether I was sleeping with Lucas. I told him it wasn't his business. He accused me of betraying him with his friend. That was almost funny. Almost. Because this man had literally told me I wasn't his girlfriend. He had rejected the relationship. He had kept his options open. And now he was standing at my door, demanding loyalty from someone he had officially refused to claim. The hypocrisy was so thick I could practically spread it on toast. He eventually brought up the fact that Lucas was his friend. I reminded him about Vanessa. I told him I knew what he'd done. I told him about the women he'd seen while spending every weekend with me. He tried to dismiss it. He tried to say he'd been joking. He tried to say he loved me. That word, love, I almost laughed. Because suddenly love was very important now. Funny, love apparently hadn't mattered when I was standing in the kitchen making him pancakes. Love hadn't mattered when he told me we were just friends with benefits. Love hadn't mattered when he wanted the freedom to do whatever he wanted. But now that someone else was treating me well, suddenly he discovered the word again. I told him the truth. He hadn't been afraid of losing me. He'd been confident I would never leave. That was his mistake. He thought my love made me permanent. It didn't. It just made me patient. And once the patience ran out, there was nothing left to negotiate. He left angry. I closed the door, and for once I didn't cry afterward. That mattered more than I can explain. A few weeks later, Lucas and I were still seeing each other, and something had changed in me. I wasn't trying to make anybody jealous anymore. I wasn't checking whether my ex had seen something online. I wasn't wondering if he was miserable. I wasn't waiting for karma to arrive wearing a tiny little justice cape. I was just living. That was the real revenge. Not another man, not jealousy, not making him hurt. Just moving on so completely that his reaction stopped mattering. Lucas took me to dinner one night. Nothing fancy, just pizza, stupid jokes, and a long walk afterward. We talked about everything. Old movies, embarrassing teenage stories, music, family, work. Nothing felt forced. At some point, he told me he wanted to really get to know me. Not the version my ex had described, not the convenient version. Me, the actual me. And I remember standing there thinking how strange it was that something so simple could feel so enormous. I didn't have to decode him. I didn't have to wonder where I stood. I didn't have to perform emotional gymnastics just to earn basic affection. I could breathe. And then he kissed me. Slowly, carefully. No games. No competition, no hidden agenda, just a kiss. And honestly, I nearly cried. Not because it was some magical movie moment, because it felt normal. Healthy, safe, and after what I'd been through, normal felt almost suspiciously luxurious. Months passed. Lucas and I became official. No dramatic announcement, no revenge post, no carefully staged social media photos designed to make someone jealous. Just two people deciding they wanted to be together. And that's when I finally understood what had happened. I hadn't lost my boyfriend. I had lost a man who refused to be my boyfriend. Those are two very different things. For a while, I thought he had broken my heart, but really he broke the fantasy. And honestly, thank God, because I don't want a man who loves me privately but refuses to claim me publicly. I don't want someone who wants my loyalty while protecting his freedom. I don't want to spend another year wondering whether something that looks like love actually counts as love. And I definitely don't want to make another batch of pancakes for a man who thinks girlfriend-level devotion is a free sample. No thanks. I learned that people will sometimes accept everything you give them without ever intending to give you the same in return. That doesn't mean you weren't valuable. It means they were comfortable taking. And I was finally uncomfortable enough to stop giving. Today, Lucas and I are happy. Not perfect. Happy. There's a difference. We have ordinary days. We annoy each other. We laugh at dumb stuff. We cook. We argue about where to eat. We make plans. And when he tells me he loves me, I don't have to wonder what category that puts me in. I'm his girlfriend. Simple. No mystery. No loopholes, no emotional fine print. And every once in a while, I think about that morning, the pancakes, the stupid smile, the casual way he told me he wasn't my boyfriend. At the time, it felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Now, it was probably the best accidental favor anyone ever did for me, because he finally told me the truth. I just didn't like it. So I believed him. And then I left. And somewhere between the heartbreak, the anger, the ugly crying, the deleting of old messages, the humiliating realization that I'd been accepting crumbs, and the terrifying decision to choose myself, I finally figured out something I should have known from the beginning. If someone doesn't want to claim you, believe them. Don't audition. Don't beg. Don't negotiate. Don't become smaller. Don't convince them. And for the love of God, don't make them pancakes hoping breakfast will somehow unlock commitment. Let them have their freedom. Give them exactly what they asked for. Then take yours. Because the funniest part of this entire disaster is that he spent a year being terrified of labels. And the moment I stopped giving him girlfriend privileges without girlfriend status, suddenly he wanted the whole relationship. Too late. He told me I wasn't his girlfriend. I believed him. Now he's not my boyfriend either. And somehow I'm doing just fine.